So this portal of perceptions, conversations with Ofer, is in the area of living in the world and engaging with many challenges of being alive at this time. And the nature of it is arising out of several questions that Ofer emailed me. And Ofer generously agreed that we will endeavor to record this on behalf of many other people that have inquiries similar to these, such as the questions of living a balanced life and proceeding with purpose or clarity about what is important for you, and inquiries in those veins. We are embarking on this inside the premise of being a human and becoming a human at these times of change. And this premise is an invitation that we are forever in a development journey, and that is a core idea, a core premise for us here at Portals of Perception. So Ofer, welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Would you like to either read some of the email and the questions that you framed, or is there anything you'd say before we dive into those questions? It's been a few days since you initially wrote that.
Yeah, I guess my questions came from being in a position where I'm engaging with the world in different levels. And so maybe a little bit about myself. I'm finishing up a master in public policy, and a lot of my work and my everyday is about how to make this world better and how I can help other people and how I can create system and create structures that facilitate people's well-being. And as much as this endeavor is great in its base, I sometimes find myself baffled. What does it mean to do good? On which level am I thinking about it? On which, like, good for whom? Good for how long? There are so many different facets to these questions, which come to the core of, okay, we have some fundamental standards that we know are true, that we have a very strong sense of truth in them. But in the everyday, in the more superficial levels, it becomes much more blurred and confusing. So I'm sometimes searching for the way to reconcile these contradictions that emerge in the complexity of our universe.
And what would you say the baffling element is?
For me, oftentimes the baffling element is that something can be true on one level and be completely true at that level. And then you move a level up or you move a level down, and suddenly it's not as clear, or it's completely the opposite. And the same principle can have a different, it just folds out differently in different stratas of our existence. And depending from what location in yourself you're looking at the principle and observing it. And that can be very confusing, and it can also be in a very, it doesn't have to be connected to something very big. It can also be very mundane in a sense.
Yes. And you also, in the introductory line to the questions you framed, you wrote about the sense of balance or imbalance, or being out of balance. How would you ground that appreciation, of that awareness, rather?
In the everyday language, at least, you say, yeah, I'm totally out of balance right now. I'm not feeling that I'm centered in myself. So for me, it's I think I detected actually in the past 2 days what caused it. So what caused it is that I was suddenly playing a game that was not my own. So I was, I'm finishing up my master. I need to find a job. So I was starting to enter this chase and to apply to jobs without even really asking myself, will I be happy to do this job, or am I applying because I'm capable of doing it, or what are my reasons? So that really took me out of balance, in a sense that I didn't set the terms. And then it was really what reminded me that is that suddenly I was finding this organization that I actually really liked and I wanted to apply. So one of the things that I do, I go and I search a little bit about the people. And when I did that, so the CEO suddenly connected with me on LinkedIn. So I said, here is an opportunity. Why won't I just write to him? And we ended up at the same day having a lovely conversation. And now I will start a process with them of further conversation to see. And then I was suddenly playing my own game. And that brought me, again, my agency, and reminding myself that for me, balance comes when I set the terms, when I am engaging with the world through my own center and not through the structures that imposing on me the feeling that I have to engage. So that was the balance.
Yeah, beautiful. Totally beautiful. So what occurred when you wrote that is I did what I do often when I'm faced with an inquiry. What appeared with me rather swiftly was a loom of considerations about the study of balance, and you just framed already right there a core element of it. So I propose that we first bring this loom item by item and chat about it. Again, the premise being that many people struggle with the consideration of balance and how to live a balanced life. And you just framed there a central element when you spoke about the idea of, are you playing your game or are you playing someone else's game? And I will describe it in adjacent words when it appears on the loom. But I propose we do that, and that we then use that as a platform to approach the other questions. The reason being is, time and again I find that if we approach any question from a place of balance, we are able to access different set of intelligences, different set of ideas. Whereas if we approach any question from a place of imbalance in our considerations, we are likely to get suboptimal, or at least not the full range of potential that's available for us. And when I start something like this, sometimes I'll draw 5 boxes, sometimes 6, sometimes I draw 9 boxes. And I said, okay, so where do you begin? Where do you begin the study of balance and imbalance? And my first thought was, well, if you feel out of balance, you're alive. I think it's a very important premise to realize life is a journey of coming in and out of balance. What you describe is you're facing a new challenge, so the challenge introduces new set of balances that in the first place will cause some imbalance. So how about that? What would you say to that when I propose that if you feel out of balance, it's a sign you are alive?
Yeah, I think it's an easy one to agree with.
Yeah, and it means that living a life is recognizing that we go through cycles, we go through phases, we go through stages, and that actually part of the journey is coming out of balance and coming back to a new balance and coming out of that. That actually by itself is part of the journey of living. So that's easy, that gets us located. The second thought is a dual consideration of balance in stillness and balance in movement. So I'm curious what this idea would bring up in you. I'd say to get us started into this, that sometime we aspire to the notion of well, there are actually 2 things here. The idea first that balance is stillness. But then we know that when you ride the bike, the reason you can actually be balanced on the bike is because you're in movement. And the months of the year that we spend down in Florida, and I don't do surfing on a board. I do body surfing in the ocean. But I watch for hours how they surf the boards, and I love the artistry. And this is an example where the very good surfers, the way they balance themselves on the board is through movement. And then once I embrace this idea, I do recognize that I can find stillness. And there is value in actually being able to find a balance that can be sensed into in stillness. And then balance in movement. So what would you say to that from your experience?
For me, balance in stillness, it doesn't have to be still, but it's the notion that you're somewhat even to whatever comes your way. So it's a little bit maybe Zen Buddhism, or at least associated with that to some extent. But the idea that whatever comes, whatever happens to you, you have an observant, this one voice in you that can observe that and not put any judgment on it, be it negative or positive. And I think that brings me at least a sense of balance, because it sends me to a different location in myself that is colder in a sense. It's not as reactive, it's not as hot, so I'm not so personal there. It's just another thing that has happened. Okay, it's closer to me because it's related to my life, but I can maintain a sense of balance in this, in like the stillness enable this balance of being even with whatever comes your way. I have access to this place, but sometimes I forget that it's available to me.
Yeah, very nice way of framing that. So there is the inner technology, the inner process of actually accessing that state, and then there is the meta-awareness of I now need to get back into this place, and I know how.
Yeah.
How do you sense into the idea of balance in movement?
Balance in movement is somewhat easier for me, the concept, because I love challenges, and I love to sometimes chew more than I can eat, or at least it seems so, and then I need to find ways to manage it. And in that movement, I find it's like one of the things that I love the most, to try to orchestrate it and dance and find balance in this constant movement of being active and being in one's life. And actually, in a sense, sometimes the plurality of engagement helps for the balance, because we are many things, and then it's easier because you're better positioned to feed the whole parts of yourself in movement, in a way. So,
and what you describe as plurality of engagement can also be thought about through the idea of the art of the juggler. So he or she, they may have half a dozen different elements floating in the air, and the juggler stands in a balanced way, poised in the middle. So whatever is the next item or ball that comes their way, all they need is to allow it to move again, to be in flow. And the mental configuration, both practically and metaphorically, is you are never the thing you're dealing with. You are present in a moment in time for the thing you're dealing with, and you may be playing a particular role, as you said, bring forward an aspect of yourself. The next minute you may be somebody else, engaging with something else, and you are You are that something else, perhaps invisible, that is able to go through all those different engagements and is not any one of those roles that you get to play. So that's a big idea to contemplate about, because many people in the world struggle with the question of who am I, and you know, people in the world would often, am I the person I am at work? Am I my role? Am I my title? Am I my achievement? Am I the money I have in the bank? Am I the relationship you are all those things, and you are none of those things.
Yeah, I'm known, so my friend, they already know it because it's a mantra that I repeat to them very often whenever they, and I do it as well all the time, but at least I developed some awareness to it and try to contain it, is the fact that we oftentimes really like to define ourselves. So I'm not funny, I'm smart, I was a pilot, I am a policymaker, and so on. And I think, yeah, maybe today you're not funny, even maybe this hour you're not funny, but does it mean that you cannot ever be cannot ever be funny? Or does it mean that if you had one bad speech that you carried out, that you're not a good speaker? So to make this distinction, that's something that I really set to myself a mental note about it, because we change so much so often.
Well, I do think it's a courageous stance about self and about life, because under the pressure and the intensity of the world coming at you from all directions, time and again you feel the pressure to define yourself. And you're saying, no, I may choose to define myself in a given circumstance per what the circumstance requires me to be, but actually there is a space in me that I preserve that's definition free, which is the space in which I can change, I can grow, I can evolve. So right there, it's pretty a radical idea, and a very important consideration in the study of balance.
A radical idea in our world, because in the digital setting that we live in, people are all the time held accountable for any mumble that go out of their mouth. And in some way, I feel that's somewhat unfair. And from that, I don't want to restrain myself from, I am aware of it, and I will try to be, accountable when it matters, to my thoughts, my words, and so on. But in general, I think it's super important to maintain this freedom in yourself and to give it to others around you as well.
Oh, that's a whole other big thing, to actually provide somebody else that space, even if they don't give it to themselves.
Super scary at times.
Yeah.